Hello to my fellow KW stakeholders. It's Aaron Kaufman, Chief Stakeholder Evangelist out of Atlanta, Georgia, bringing you another edition of the My 401 KW interview series where we dive deep with some of our top profit share earners and stakeholder-minded associates. And this afternoon is no different as we get to talk with one of my favorite OPs in all of KW, the fabulous Debbie Zois. How you doing from Las Vegas?
Well, I'm doing great. Thank you for that, Aaron. I love you and I love all that you've done for our company. It's pretty
Thank
cool.
you, Debbie. And you've always been so supportive of me and my class. I think I've been out to your market center, I don't know, for 3 or 4 times at least. So thrilled to dive deep with you. So Debbie, I know you've had an amazing journey at KW. Before we jump into that, why don't you take us back to before you were in real estate? Tell us your story, how you got into real estate. I know you were at another company or two before you came to KW. So take us back to, what year was it when you got your real estate license?
It was 1986. So I'm originally from Canada. And if anyone ever told me I would move to Las Vegas and live there, I would have said they were crazy. Like there was no way this Canadian was I don't gamble. I don't smoke, drink, but not very well. And, 38 years later, here I am. So I was a supervisor for a chain of retail stores. We had a store in Vegas. I met my now ex-husband and we dated for a couple of years. I was back up in Canada. It was minus 40. It was 70 in Vegas. And I said, okay, for a year. And then I'm going to move somewhere green with a mountain or a beach or something like that. And that was 38 years ago. And I started in real estate because, it was 1986. What could go wrong, right?
Yeah.
It was crazy time to get into the business, but I did. And I started with the biggest company in town. It was now is Berkshire Hathaway, and was there for 11 years and then was looking for something else. I didn't know what I was looking for. I went to the copy machine one day, and in those olden days, we used to photocopy our marketing, right? We didn't have people that printed it like we do now. And the person was hiding their stuff from me. And I was like, that's kind of weird. Like if you shared it with me, and I shared mine with yours, maybe we'd each get a little bit better. And so I said, here's mine. You want to see it? And he's like, no. And I realized then I was at the wrong company. So I went out looking, and there really wasn't anything going on, but Keller had just come to Vegas. It was a teeny office with 15 agents. And I heard Gary talk one day. I wasn't going to join.
So where did you hear Gary talk, Debbie? At what point did you get in front of Gary?
It's funny that you're asking me this because I wasn't even thinking about this, but they wanted to recruit me, and somehow Gary came to Las Vegas and he spoke at one of the smokiest casinos that I would never normally go to. And Gary would probably never go there again. I'm sure he was not happy being there, but I went and I was going to hide out in the back of the room and leave halfway through because I had said that I would go. So I had to uphold my word and go, but I had no intention.
How did that conversation happen, Debbie? So let's go back to how did you even get invited? Was there an individual that you had a relationship with at KW that said, hey, we've got Gary Keller coming into town? How did that actually happen?
It was actually, we had interviewed and the regional owners were the ones that were inviting me. They were all over it and kind of we were the big team that they might get. They didn't really have anybody big. And so I knew nothing about Gary Keller. I had no clue. And I went there, and here's this guy in jeans and this Camp Keller shirt that is in camouflage. And I'm like, geez, what did I sign up for? And I'm sitting in the back of the room, and I brought my note cards. I'm writing my cards. I'm just going to duck out at the first break, right? But I will have showed up. And all of a sudden he's talking about peas. And I'm going, what is this man talking about? And he's talking about John, his son, and why he doesn't like peas, but why he needs to eat peas because it's good for his health. And I was like, this is the weirdest real estate thing I've ever been to in my life. But I started to listen because it was different, right? And in those days, Gary would always do the 6 personal perspectives. Everything started with that, whether you wanted it or not, it was going to be there. And I started to listen to it, and I was like, this makes a lot of sense. Like this guy's smart. And I put my note cards away, and I just kind of sat there, and I didn't leave. And I ended up joining the company, and it was because of that, and just thinking bigger and thinking differently. I'd only ever been exposed to go get another listing, go get another sale. I was the number 3 agent at my company, and I was doing well, but I was kind of stuck, and I was I was at a level where I could make 120,000, and that was kind of, I had almost 5 years of that, right? 119, 122, 120, and I couldn't get past it. And hearing Gary talk made me think about things differently, right? And leverage and what could I do? And I left I left the company I was at and joined KW in January. And that year I grossed 350.
Wow.
And it was like this light bulb went off where I was like, oh, I have a part-time assistant. By the end of the year, I had 2 full-time assistants. And it really leveraged me. I was a single mom. I was always scrounging to get to my kids' games. I couldn't miss them. So, I'm on the phone doing real estate as I'm driving. And it taught me a lot. And so I think back, I had forgotten about that story, but Gary talking about life and just different than any other real estate class I'd been to.
Yeah. I mean, my life changed when I saw Gary speak for the first time. And I want to put this in perspective, Debbie. I mean, this was 97, right? That you joined KW, and you had mentioned that was back when we had 3,000 agents, right? There was 50 people at Mega Camp, a couple hundred people at Family Reunion, right? We were coincidentally, in a weird way, that was the first year that we actually profit shared as a company, was 97. So I'm assuming profit share wasn't a big part of of what was on your radar. I mean, obviously it was systems, training, culture. It sounds like culture of sharing seemed to be an attractor to you. Did Gary paint a vision for what he was building, or was it more of hey, look, this is the model, this is the systems, we're building a company around that? I mean, what was it about KW besides Gary and sort of his abundant thinking and forward thinking? Did you understand KW was inherently different as a model, or was it more just the attraction of, hey, I'm going to go to this company, break through my natural ceiling, grow my business, and that I'm not going to think past that? Yeah.
I felt like it was different. I felt like it was your normal real estate company, because I was out looking. I'd been all over the place, and everybody was always about, get listings, get buyers, do more business. And I was like, I'm banging my head against the wall. I have 2 boys. I have as many buyers and sellers as I can handle. I don't have any more time.
Right. So the leverage component was missing from all of your training throughout up until that point, right? Which was, Gary was the innovator who brought essentially the team concept and hiring and leveraging, right, and all that stuff. And that was a perfect timing for you you had 2 young kids at the time, yeah? Right.
I had 2 boys, and I needed leverage. I had to, and I think just thinking differently, thinking about it as a business versus just a job. I don't always have to be the one that has the listing or has the buyer. And that was very different in real estate back then. And Gary was, he was very determined. Profit share was it didn't mean anything to me at the time. It was just sort of like okay, well, I could do that 1 day 2, and it could be something. I don't think profit share, it didn't even become important to me until, Dave really is the one that talked about it. I think in the beginning it was, I left the company I was at, went to a new company. No one had heard of this company. Gary was calling it KW International. I was like, we're not even national. What do you?
Right.
We're in like 6 states.
I love it though. You got to paint a big vision, right? Of course. And people, just so people know, Debbie, we're talking about, when we say Dave, we're talking about no other than Dave Jenks, right? Who has touched many people's lives, was a huge part of inspiring me. So let's go back to your relationship with Dave. He was based out of Las Vegas, right? I mean, no, he wasn't? Because I know he lived in Vegas for a period of time, but talk about that.
No, Dave actually never lived in Vegas. He would come and visit me in Vegas. He was from Texas and had been at Century 21, and Mo went and got him when Mo joined the company. Yeah. And recruited him. And they had both been at Century 21 together, so they knew each other. Sure. And Gary and Dave there's, even after Dave left the company, Gary said to me, there's no one that can brainstorm like Dave Jenks. Like, he's one of a kind when it comes to that. He's just insanely brilliant with that. And I remember in 97, I heard him at an event I went to in Phoenix, because there were no more events in Vegas after that. Gary wasn't coming back probably for a while.
Right.
But I was in Phoenix and I heard him and I was like, I need to go meet this man. So I chased him and I ended up having lunch with him, and he was very gracious. And that's one of the things I've learned in this company is don't be scared to go and ask somebody something, because if you ask, they're willing to help you. You know,
exactly.
it's different than a lot of companies, but that I asked Dave and I asked him later to coach me because I was watching him. I was like, this man's smart. I want him to coach me. And he goes, no, I can't. I'm too busy. I go, no, I'm sure you have time somewhere. And we did that for a while. And finally he said yes. And Mindy was his right hand then. And when I emailed her, she goes, no, he can't coach you. I go, no, he's going to. And she said, no, Debbie, he's full. I said, well, you better check, because he said he's making time. And he coached me for 7 years. And that really just changed my life. I mean, Dave was really a bigger thinking person, and MRA was being written. I was involved in the little masterminds that Gary started with 20 people, and then you know, went up to 100, and it was a pretty magical time. I remember in 2000 they were getting ready to write the book, because that was their thing. Like, how do we get on the map? How do we quickly have people? What can we do that'll get us really visible fast? And writing the national best-selling real estate book was the answer. Only they weren't really there, right? They weren't national authors. They didn't have any of that. So they set out to write the book, and they were brainstorming with us all the time. And I remember, this is a funny story, when I was in Gary's mastermind, and he would always send us an email like 30 days ahead of time and say, our mastermind is next month. Come with your something and also read this book. And that would be it. And you would never go and not be prepared, because there's 20 of you and he'd call you out, right? So he sends this email and it says, come with your business plan to net $1 million. And I about fell over, right? I'm grossing 350. I feel like I'm doing great. I think by then I might have been up to 5, but I'm like, he's insane. Gary's like, he's lost it. So I reply back, Gary, I'm not about money. If I could gross $1 million, I'd be thrilled. That's all I need to do. And because he's Gary, he replies back, Debbie, you're thinking too small. Think bigger. Come with your business plan to net $1 million. And I just kind of was like, wow, that's kind of, I don't even know what that looks like. It was so unthinkable. Like, at the time, there were 2 people in our mastermind who were grossing $1 million. No one was close to netting $1 million. And we all called each other and we're like, he's lost it. I go, yeah, he's lost it. I don't know, but what are you going to do? And we're like, well, we're going to have to figure it out, because we can't go there and not be prepared, right? You have to, he's going to call you on the spot. So you need to think about this. So I remember I spent the weekend at my cabin just kind of looking at it, like, how many houses would you have to actually sell to do this? And what would you have to gross? And then we all kind of talked about it before we went there. And then we all kind of came up with about the same thing. It was interesting. And that was kind of the launch of the book, and how they interviewed the 100 top agents in the country and looked at the plan. And that was the beginning of it. And I mean, that changed my life, because the next year, there were 3 people, I think, that netted $1 million. Yeah. It was insane. But there were 73 of us, me included, who grossed $1 million. And that trajectory just set us up for, what could you do? You know, what would it have to look like? What would your staff have to be? And because we'd never thought that way, we'd never thought it was possible.
Well, if you're going to write a book called The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, you gotta find some agents and inspire some agents to net $1 million, right? So, I mean, it was all hand in hand. I mean, you were, Debbie, a part of not just the fundamental, foundational pillar of KW, which is the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. I mean, think about how that changed agents' lives throughout the industry, changed the industry, right? I mean, that was such a cool, that's like being with Steve Jobs, back in, when they invented, the iPhone or the Apple IIe. I mean, literally, that was what an exciting time. So you were there, and I want to look, that's an amazing thing. Not everybody can, relate to being, in a room with Gary Keller and 20 people and being there at the beginning. But, so talk about this amazing relationship with Dave, because look, Dave is the original sort of profit share evangelist at KW, right? I mean, he is the guy that was out there painting a vision for me, back in 2005 when I saw him and Gary speak at family reunion. So talk about how Dave influenced you. Obviously he influenced your real estate business and all that stuff, but we obviously now you're an OP, and talk about that relationship with Dave and how he helped sort of see the vision for what KW was doing and what KW was becoming, and what the opportunity was for not just, ownership, but profit share and changing agents' lives in Las Vegas. Talk about that process with Dave, because I can't imagine. Yeah, because you guys opened up a market center together, correct? That's why I always think Dave had roots in Las Vegas, but that he had ownership roots, right, with you, correct? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So Dave coached me for a long time, and he was somebody I would always listen to. He was very logical.
Yeah.
And I can implement stuff and take off running, but I don't always look where I'm going. Right. But Dave, I would listen to, and it was a really good, it was a good partnership together because he'd give me an idea and I could go make it happen. And it really, it helped us. I remember I came to him because the Vegas office was a mess and the region was kind of a mess and we weren't profitable. I had a team leader who moved us but forgot to hook up the phone system. It was just, and we didn't, cell phones were not like they are now. It was like that was your livelihood. And
sure.
I lost my mind. And I remember talking to Gary, and I told Gary, I go, I think I should leave. I don't know what to do because I love you, but I can't stay. And he goes, you should leave. And I go, that's a dumb idea. You shouldn't be telling your number one agent they should leave. And he goes, well, if you leave, it'll fall apart sooner. Then we can rebuild it with the right people, and then you can come back. And I was like,
wow.
Okay, well, where would I go? And he goes, go to Remax or Realty One or, go to any of those kind of places and you can come back. And I go, but what about like masterminds and make a camp? And I love that stuff and my friends and the knowledge. He goes, you can still come to all of it. And I was like, that's kind of weird. And I thought about it. Actually, I went and interviewed those places. And what I learned was they were just as dysfunctional as we were. There wasn't really a good solution. So instead I kind of hunkered down, closed my doors, built my team, and just did my own stuff. And that's how we got to over $1 million in GCI. And then I remember like, you never know what's going to happen. And Gary, I wanted to shadow him because I shadowed top people. And what I found is when you shadow somebody, you learn so much. Like when I wanted to be a top mega agent, I called 10 of the top agents in the country, flew around and shadowed them. And they all said yes. They all let me come. Then I did the same thing when I wanted to become an OP. So I thought I should shadow Gary. So I asked Gary if I could shadow him, and he said yes. And talk about a life-changing day, because that was September 11th. And I was driving to his office, and I was in the parking lot, my Toyota Corolla rental car, and I heard something, and I didn't know what they were talking about on the radio. And I'm in a hurry to go see Gary, so I go upstairs, and we're finding it out. And what a day that was, because Gary has such a focus that even September 11th, it took him off his game for a little bit, but he still just continued on what he was doing. And I was blown away, right? My kids are home with the housekeeper and the world's coming to an end. But he had calls every half hour that day. And some of them were in person. Most of them were remote, and almost everybody was on the call, believe it or not, September 11th, even though it was September 11th. The conversation always kind of started with, hey, hi, how are you? Is your family's okay? Everybody's good? Yeah, it's a crazy day. Oh my gosh. And then Gary would say, you know what? It's a nutty day, but I can't change the outcome of it. So I'm not going to let it mess my day up, and I'm just going to dive into it. And I was sitting on the couch in his room, just kind of like, oh my gosh, what's happening? But that was an impactful day. And I think it brought me closer to Gary and closer to Dave because of that. Just thinking that way, like, wow, the whole world's changing, and this is how he reacts to it.
Well, and think about today, Debbie, right? I mean, and just Gary's, as he would say, I'm an immovable object, right? I mean, this guy has literally been charging the storm for 40 plus years. And in this moment, you know, with what's happening with our industry, I mean, we're getting attacked from every side, lawsuits, you know, I mean, tech disruptors. I mean, he just keeps showing up. He keeps plowing forward. He's got his purpose, right? He's a constant student. And, you know, I always tell people, Debbie, and, you know, this has kind of been, you know, the two words that have been coming out of my mouth over the last couple of years has been purpose and community, you know, and I think about what we are as a company. And I mean, you tell me another real estate company that can deliver on purpose and community like we do. And when you got a guy like Gary, who is just an immovable object, who is constantly always thinking about what can I do to protect and elevate my people, my agents, there is a sense of calmness. I mean, that I have. I know, I'm sure you feel the same way, even though, you know, things have been crazy the last couple of years. You know, I just kind of like, in Gary, I trust. I just like, as long as that guy is driving the ship up here, you know, out of Austin, I just feel like KW is always going to be heading in the right direction. We're going to have ups and downs, but, you know, with Gary, I trust. I mean, I know you feel exactly the same way. And look, it hasn't changed since, you know, 1997, right? And 83, the guy's been doing the same thing every day, showing up and having an abundant mindset. So you obviously that was a huge experience. I know we're going to talk a little bit more about some of these huge cultural moments that also happened within KW while you were here. So at what point? So you're a top agent. You're in this office that's this dysfunctional. At what point did that market center shut down, and then you have the opportunity for ownership, or, you know, talk about how that sort of manifests itself?
Yeah, so there was push to change regional ownership, and the regional owners actually owned the two market centers in Vegas. And I went around and visited other successful market centers, and the market was hot. That was 2004, 2005, and everyone was succeeding except us. And we were not profitable. We lost like a couple $100,000. It was kind of insane. And I was talking to Dave about it. And I said, you know, I love KW and I love the model, and I just wish we could do it in Vegas. And I had top people in the company coming to me and going, hey, I've done it in these other cities, you know, Vegas, let's partner. And I had 3 different big people that came to me, and I was talking to Dave about it. And that's the beauty of talking to Dave, is you never knew where it was going to go, right?
Yeah.
So I was telling him about that. I think I'm going to become an OP. I have these 3 people. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. And he gets into this, well, Debbie, you know, partnership is it's really hard, and partnerships probably hardly ever work, and you have to be extra careful. And I don't know, there's 50,000 people in KW at the time. And think about who would be the very select few that you would even consider partnering with. And, you know, he made me think for a minute, and I got quiet. And I said, Dave, I said, really the only person that I would completely trust and really feel good about partnering with is you. And he got really quiet. And he was like, well, that wasn't where I meant the question, you know, to go. But by then he'd coached me for like 7 years. We've worked really well together. And he said, you know what, let me come out. We need to spend some FaceTime and let's explore it. Maybe it's something we can do and follow the model and do some really good things. And so he came out, we talked, and I was just ecstatic, because what a great person by my side, right?
Yeah.
He taught FSO. He wrote a lot of FSO. He knows everything. And it was really a great relationship. And he'd come out 1 weekend a month, and he'd come out on a Thursday night. He'd teach something Friday. We'd do a mastermind on Saturday. Then we'd hike and go up to my cabin on Sunday and brainstorm, and then he'd go home. And it was always it was powerful because of that. And I think that partnering with him was just a blessing in my life, because who knew what was going to happen in Vegas, right? We launched in 2006. We're the home run market center of the world. Everything's great. It's wonderful. And we're in Vegas. And I remember our commissions went from 10,600 on average to 2,400. And that 2,400 was a short sale that probably took a year for you to get paid too. Like, it was an ugly, different kind of a situation. But He helped me
I
so
was right
much.
there with you, Deb. I was right there with you. I launched my website in '05 and, had all my success in '05, '06, '07, and then the market hit. And, that was a real, I always, I think back to how much I've learned over the last 20 years, and I always think about, oh, woe is me back then. But then I think about the owners like you, right? Who, it wasn't about your profit share checks going down. It was like, we're not profitable. We got to pay these bills, right? So what was that like? And I would imagine looking back, Debbie, right? We always talk about the greatest shift of wealth and opportunity are in down cycles, not up cycles. I think about all the great things that came out of that shift for me. I built my class, I met my wife, and all these things came out of that shift. So what did that moment, right, of going through that moment as an owner with KW, what was that like, and how did that shape what you've been able to build today? Because you have we have a very profitable market center. Did you find that those times, the agents that survived that time with you were in partnership with you for a long time after that?
Yeah, definitely. It really, somehow we got through it. I mean, we cut everything we could cut. We trimmed everything we could trim, and we stayed profitable, knock on wood, every single month. It was just a miracle, but it was not easy, right? And we had agents going through divorces and losing their houses, and it was a different time and kind of a degree in psychology really quick, I think. But
Of course.
a lot of great relationships from that. We celebrated a lot of 10-year, 15-year anniversaries with our agents who've been with us through that time. And we got through it, and we put our heads down and we went to work. And it's kind of like the market now. Like, you put your head down, you go to work, and you can do it. We've been profitable every month, and I'm very blessed because of that. And it's not always been the biggest profit, but to stay profitable in Vegas during that time was really.
100%. And Debbie, since you and look, we go back to what kind of attracted you to KW was this community, this culture, the culture of collaboration at KW. That obviously that must have been a big part of what your messaging was to your agents, right? I mean, was it a challenge to get your agents to buy into culture? Look, it's one thing to launch a KW Market Center. It's another thing to launch a KW Market Center after the previous one has failed in in essentially a shifting market. So were you able to communicate, sort of our interdependent culture and our community? And was that a big part of what your messaging was through your leadership team and to your agents?
It was a huge part of who we are. And we had so many situations where an agent, got cancer, or somebody was beaten and brutally left for dead. And every time something happened, our guys showed up in droves. And even though they didn't have much money, they would still do whatever it took to do things. And I think it really made us a tighter, more cohesive group because of it. The marketing reps used to say that they'd come past our office and everybody was happy, and they were in there and working and doing stuff. And the other offices were like morgues or bowling alleys, and nobody was in there.
Exactly.
Some kept people plugged in and putting one foot in front of another. We had to do a lot of short sales. We did REOs, we did BPOs, I threw my shoes away sometimes after I went to look at some of those icky houses, but we got through it. Got through it. And I think we learned a lot from it. And, staying profitable is something. And I remember, Dave was always into profit share. And I remember early on in one of the masterminds, he had the McKissicks. Gary made us come. That time, it wasn't net $1 million. It was come with your business that's going to run parallel to real estate. Like, what are you going to do that's complementary? You can't go open a Subway. You can't get a car wash. You can't do something silly, but what's the same path? And the McKissicks were having a hard time kind of trying to decide, and title or lending or inspection. And Dave told them to work on profit share, and they did. And Linda really, really got it. And I remember her business plan that she had to get 25 people on her first line, and she was going to net $1 million. And it was so clear and succinct that when Dave used to teach for us, he'd always do a PowerPoint that showed his profit share tree and the McKissicks. And they don't have a ton of people in their first line, but over time it grows. Like your seventh level was getting bigger and bigger, and it's time. And it's pretty incredible to think the people that came because of that and who benefited because of it.
Well, it's incredible you were there in the moment that Linda McKissick, was inspired to turn profit share into her sort of case study, which then I just love. That's what I love about KWW. It's like we stand on the shoulders of giants, right? I mean, like, yeah, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the McKissicks. They wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Dave Jenks, and Gary Keller. And that's what I'm all about, right? Paying it forward to the next wave of people that are going to be growing our company 20, 30, 40 years from now. And you and I both know, for those that are purposeful about profit share, this is never about our next check, okay? Especially in a down market, okay? This is about a legacy, right, that we're building, and it takes time, and there's ups and downs. But when you look at the McKissicks, what I love about the McKissicks is, they've only sponsored 33 people between the two of them. I mean, Jimmy, I think, has one person on his first level. That's Linda. She's got like 32 people on her first level. And then they all have, they have 10,000 people in their tree. And, look, for those that I'm sure people that are listening, if you're a husband and wife team, you always want to stack your profit share. You want one of your spouses under the other, and you want everybody else to be under the other spouse. And if you're looking for proof of that, just look at the McKissicks. But the other side of that, Debbie, is if you have family in the business too, the same thing can go. And I know that Dave, your two sons joined your business for a period of time there. And Dave advised you, as he should have, to help your sons build their profit share tree. And obviously that has come back to you many times over. So talk about that dynamic. You had your two sons working on your team. They got into KW. They got into profit share. You started putting people underneath them, right? Talk about what that was like and what that has turned into.
Yeah, it's interesting because over time it changes everything. I just want to pause for a minute about the McKissick because I looked at their numbers, and Dave used to do a PowerPoint. So they have 32 people really there, and they've got 16.5 million. Yes. So you can do that math, right? Yeah. Like that's 500,000, more than 500,000 a person.
Exactly.
And so when you go to recruit somebody, if you look at it that way, or even if it's 100,000 or 50,000, I mean, good heavens, the time what that's done is pretty amazing. So when I was a single mom, my kids, I made them work because I'm working, they've got to work, we've got to feed each other. And I had mail back then. We got to a point we were sending 20,000 pieces of mail out a month, and my kids, I think they hated it. There was sometimes they liked it, but a lot of times they didn't like it. So they were doing the mail. That was their thing. They would, seal them and put the labels on and all that terrible stuff. And I was talking to Dave about it. He goes, well, why don't you pay them? I go, pay them? He goes, yeah, talk to your accountant because you could pay them and it'll save you on your taxes. And so sure enough, I did. He goes, and then you can put them in the profit share tree because now they're an employee of the Debbie Zois team. And I was like, what? Never in my wildest dreams would I have thought about that, but I did. So since then, I've stacked them, and we have an account that our money goes into, and we agreed as a family that we share it. And so my boys went to college with the money. We've gone on some pretty insane trips with the money. We do it for things together as a family because it's important, and it's money we wouldn't have had otherwise.
So you guys pull the money? Like, is it a third, a third, a third? Is that the deal? Or is it?
It's a group account.
2/3? Huh?
It's a group account. And so it's my bank account. We get to do whatever we want with it. So we went to Iceland with it. My youngest son, we bought a house with it that he was going to school, and he became the landlord of a 4-bedroom house when he's at UNR and had to learn how to write a lease and manage tenants and kick people out, his friends that weren't behaving and stuff. And then we 1031 that into 2 houses. So that's there. We helped vacations and just, really some fun, cool stuff that we might not have done otherwise. And it's certainly a nice little something. And I think more people should do that because I see agents that get, $1,000 here and $1,000 here, and they don't even notice it. But if they put it all into a separate account and didn't pay attention, all of a sudden they'd look up and there's a chunk load of money in there. And that's a pretty sweet thing to happen, right?
I mean, yeah. And you guys have earned as a family, whatever, about over 600,000, coming up on 700,000, right? In lifetime profit share. Yeah.
Nothing to sneeze at. That's not what they would have made doing mail, right?
Well, and how old are your sons, Debbie, right now?
They are 29 and 36. And I actually have 2 grandsons that we can do stuff with them too. So it's kind of like a legacy that's going to keep on giving.
It's not kind of like, it is. And I think that's the cool thing, Debbie, is that, people always, you know, try to monetize. I mean, how do you monetize? First of all, you can never predict who somebody might become, who they might attract. I mean, who knows? Like some of the people I sponsor to KW's brand new agents or OPs now. They're top agents. They run communities. So you never know who some of these people in your downline are going to turn into. Some of them might end up going international, right? I mean, but the fact is, my guess is, Debbie, if you never did another thing again with profit share, somebody in your family is going to be getting profit share 50 years from now, 70 years from now, just from the effort that you and your sons did, over the years. And I know you agree with that. I mean, look, who knows? I mean, you bring on somebody who's 20 in their 20s, and then 30 years from now, they bring on somebody in their 20s. I mean, this thing could go on for hundreds of years if we just keep protecting that legacy. So I think it's amazing because people, they see that $1,000, Debbie, and they kind of, they or $5 or $100 or whatever they make, and they don't see the big picture of that represents a lottery ticket. That person who generated that, who knows who they're going to attract and who they might become. So that's got to be exciting to know that not only did you send your sons to college, you're going to probably end up sending your grandkids to college too, right? That's pretty amazing. Yeah.
It's unreal. And I've had agents where, we were profitable in bad times. Sometimes they had more money in profit share than they did in a check. Right. And it's something that's there for us. And it doesn't take any extra effort because, for me, I could never sell something if I didn't believe in it. If I didn't believe in KW, couldn't do it. It would not happen. Right. But I totally believe in it. So because of that, it's a natural byproduct of what can happen.
Think about where you were as a single mother, right? I mean, the one thing you needed more than anything was time, right? And I don't know of a better leverage tool for creating time than passive income, right? And even though profit share is down right now, and unfortunately some of our market centers are not profitable, maybe 20, 25% of them right now are not profitable. But the fact is we still have market centers that are heading towards $1 million in profit share this year. And even if your profit share is down from where it was a couple of years ago, the money that those agents are getting right now is so much more important to them in a down market than it is in an up market. I mean, if you get your power bill paid or your car payment paid right now versus when the market's up and you're selling a ton of houses, you don't really appreciate that money as much than when you need it, right? The most. So,
and I think you made a really interesting point too, Aaron, because as an OP, I watch agents come in and sometimes I have a feeling like, oh, that one's going to succeed and oh, that one might not. And I'm really surprised sometimes, like you don't know who's going to do what. And so I would encourage people to not be thinking about the quality, but be thinking about the quantity, because
absolutely.
That's than anything. Like Dave only had 6 people in his profit share tree, and he did that because he stopped. He felt like as an employee of the company, he should be helping others. So he was always helping other agents to recruit, but he still got a few $1 million in profit share because of those 6 people. So don't say no or don't say never. Just make sure you put them in there. And then if you get systematic with it, I think it makes a lot of sense. I know I had my executive assistant was doing some career nights for us, and she was doing just some onboarding, and she was very social. And so when she met somebody that talked about real estate, of course she'd send them our way. And she wasn't an active recruiter, but just in her off time did stuff. And she was in a really horrific car accident and back in 2018 and couldn't move from the shoulders down, is in a wheelchair.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, I paid her for quite a while because I just thought it was the right thing to do, but her income wasn't going to go on forever, right? And all of a sudden you're a single mom she had a 12-year-old daughter and not a lot of money coming in, huge medical bills. And I remember that year she got like 10 grand in profit share, and it meant so much to her because she didn't have to do anything. She didn't have to work. It was just there and it was showing up. So it kind of makes me even tear up just thinking about the way, the impact it can make on people with no.
And Debbie, I mean, that's what I've been doing for the last, 15 years, is trying to make people understand that connection between profit share and culture, right? Is that those two things are forever linked in KW. We want to be profitable so that we're profit sharing with our associates, right? But the bigger conversation is, when you're thinking like a stakeholder and you understand that you're vested in the success of your fellow stakeholders financially, it tends to cultivate a culture that's stronger than at other companies where there is no incentive. And I know you've seen a lot of stuff like I have. It's rare that I talk to people that have been with KW longer than me. But I know that we have shared a lot of similar moments in KW where our culture has really shown up and showed out like how different we are. And I know you were mentioning a moment in our conversations about when Katrina happened early on in your career at KW and Mo came into the room. Do you want to talk about sort of that's when you kind of, I think, realized, holy crap, the culture at this company is a whole nother, organism? I mean, talk about what that moment, because a lot of people don't look. I mean, I was just in Houston, Texas, talking about Mega Relief, Debbie, and half the people in the room didn't even know about it. I was just in Des Moines, Iowa, talking about the Family Fund. Half the people in the room didn't even know about it, right? So we talk about if we don't tell our story, our competition will, and they're obviously not telling these amazing stories of culture that just keep happening over and over again at KW. And people, if we stop telling those stories, Debbie, I think it's going to get lost, the why it's inherently different here. So would you just share that moment you had in that with when during Katrina and what happened there?
It's funny because I hadn't thought about it for a while until I was thinking about this call. And so I was getting ready to become an OP. And so I thought I should go to the OP mastermind, right, to start learning about this and make sure that I even want to become an OP. And I'm kind of weird where I don't watch TV. I don't read the newspaper. I don't do any of that stuff because I feel like if it's important, I'm going to find out soon enough. And I don't need all the negativity. So I didn't know what was going on. It was 8 a.m. Mo Anderson comes storming into this room there was 218 OPs in there, including me, and I'm not even an OP, right? And she comes in and she slams her fist down and she's like, you guys are our leaders. I respect you and I value you. And this is horrific what's happening. We must help these people. And I'm very busy and I'm going to come back tomorrow morning and we must have $200,000 in this room by tomorrow at 8 a.m. You got it? And we all just kind of looked at her and I was like, oh my God, what just happened? And she stormed out of the room. And I was like, what's going on? And I learned about Katrina had hit and that was what was going on. Our people were impacted. She wanted this money and I can do math pretty good. So I was like, that means each of us has to write a $10,000 check. And I'm not even an OP yet. And
right. You're like sneaking out the back door. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
I shouldn't be at this mastermind, right? Only the OP should pay it. And Don Zalesnik was in and he had a ton of cash at that time. And so I remember saying, Don, why don't you write a check for 100 and we'll each write smaller checks because then we could still hit our number and be okay. And I was kind of nervous about it. And then I watched it on TV and I was like, oh my gosh, it's horrific. Like it's so awful what has happened. And the next morning, sure enough, she storms in there at 8 o'clock. She goes, well, darlings. And I'm like scared because I'm going to go into the table if we haven't hit this. Like I can't even imagine. And we were at $320,000 that we had donated in that little room of 218 people. And that was the days of OP, then team leader, then agent mastermind. And by the end of the week, she collected 800 and something thousand from the leadership and the people there. And I tell that story because it makes me just proud. And I go on to where, she made everybody in the company donate. Like if you were in the company, you didn't hear about donating to Katrina, you had to be under a rock or something. Like she was shaking every bush and branch and you had to donate. And so at the end of that time, I think KW had donated something like 2.4 million. And we were 50,000 agents. And at the same time, the whole association of NAR was 1.3 and they are 1.4 and they don't. And they had 1.1 million in money that they donated. I just looked at that and went 50,000 people and look at what we did. Like, look at how powerful. And that check was uncomfortable to write because I was like 10 grand and I'm not even an OP. I don't even know anybody in Louisiana. But it was the right thing to do. And I think that
you never know when you're going to need it, Debbie. You never know when it's going to come back to you. I mean, how many things have happened I mean, Maui, Fort Myers, Florida, Houston, Texas. I mean, how many events and natural disasters have there been? Joplin, Missouri with the tornadoes. I mean, you never know. You never know how important the KW culture is until you need it, and I just think that, you weren't even an OP, you hadn't committed yet at that time, right? I mean, at that moment, right, you're writing a check and you're not even an OP yet, right? Even though it might.
I was dying. I was like, oh, what did I just do?
Right.
Okay, all right.
But so talk about how that, though, solidified sort of your belief in KW. This company is not just a training and coaching company. It's a culture company. It's a purpose company. So that obviously solidified. Being in that room was probably worth every cent you spent that day to donate, right? Just the value you got back and the relationships you build. And because I always think about the moments like when I went to Mega Relief, and I was on the bus going to Houston, Texas with Scott Toombs on the bus, right? And he's running the front of the, you've got a microphone on the bus. He's doing some training. I'm doing some training. And those moments, just solidify relationships. That was 8 years ago, but I think that, what I try to do in these calls, Debbie, and what I'm trying to do in my class is that I want people to understand, our culture is different by design, right? I mean, there's good and bad people at every company. Not everybody at KW buys into our culture. Not everybody's having the same experience at KW. Not every office is delivering on all our value. But at the end of the day, there's something inherently different about KW. And what I've been trying to do for a long time is try to make people understand why it's different. Why is our culture different? Why do we do the things that we do at KW and they're not being done in other companies? And what I try to get people to understand is that it always comes back to profit share. I know I don't want to dilute family. I don't want to dilute, the heart of the people that we have in this company. But when you're vested financially in the success of your fellow stakeholders, whether they be in your market center or whether they be in another office, that is what makes it inherently different. And I always tell people, Debbie, my downline's in 300 offices of KW. Okay. That means I'm vested financially in the success of every agent in those market centers, right? Not just the people in my downline, every agent in those offices. And so, I'm a big Simon Sinek guy. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. But I just wish that we would try to connect those dots a little bit more as we continue to grow, Debbie, and we continue to get away from being in a room with Gary Keller and 20 people, or, now we're 180,000 agents. Now Mega Camp and Family Reunion has 10,000 people there, 15,000 people, right? The intimacy of KW sometimes can be challenging as we grow so big, so fast. So as an OP, besides bringing me into your office, okay, multiple times to tell them what I know, how does that shape how you've built this office? I mean, do you try to connect the dots between profit share and culture and what it means to be a stakeholder and how to build a market center nobody wants to leave because they feel like they're a part of something bigger? I mean, especially at this moment, Debbie, when we're in a down market, there've been some changes around profit share. Not every OP necessarily sees profit share as a rock of growth and culture. Talk about how you see profit share as a part of our value, how it connects to culture, and how you see it continuing to be a part of our value proposition moving forward.
Love to. I think it's always going to be there, Aaron. It's like the center of who we are, and that's why I've always valued you coming out, because even though you can be a little edgy sometimes and you've done those energy drinks and you're like on fire, my guys are just always like, wow, he's real. And he's really talking about what matters. And the culture is such a big thing for me, but you can't just have culture if you're not productive. Right. It's got to be the culture of productivity, and that makes profit, right? And so that's your triangle that goes together. And I tell people that KW is kind of, it's like this incredible sunset, right? And it's so beautiful and so insanely unique. And then you try to take a picture of it or describe it, and you can only get like this much of it, because
I love that.
You have to live it to be able to see it. My team leader just said to me, she's been with me 8 years, and she said to me, I really understand that we've got a lot of people coming back to our office, and the value of KW is so much more than just the cap or the split or the education. And they're coming back because of the culture, and they're coming back because of the profit share, because of not just because of the profit share, but because of what it does, because you're a stakeholder.
They want to sell houses in a down market, Debbie, right? And the best way to sell more houses is to collaborate with agents in your market that are doing in around this company, right? It's a great saying that I've been hearing lately, right? Collaboration happens at the top, competition happens at the bottom, right? The number one reason to be a KW is that you're at a company where agents are working together, they're sharing ideas in an industry that's always been independent. That's our secret sauce, right? I mean, you can't quantify culture. You can't quantify what it means to be able to reach out to a person like a Dave Jenks, or anybody else in this company, and to learn. They're willing to share with you how they do it. So I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I wanted to make that point. So it's culture of production, but it starts with creating that culture of collaboration, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that, because if you look at some of the other recent revenue sharing companies, they're doing that, and it's totally like they've got the profit sort of not really even right rev share, but the rest of it's missing, so it doesn't work. It can't function because it's not who we are. We just changed our we don't have a weekly stakeholders meeting. We have a monthly office meeting, and we call it our owners meeting, because we feel like all of our agents are owners, and so we treat them that way as owners. And it's just that mindset of thinking, I believe.
Well, I love how you bring up, sort of the rev share, virtual rev share model. Look, and look, these are interesting models. I mean, they have their value propositions. Okay, only time I have a problem is when they try to pretend like they're KW, and that they're just a better version. And then the other part I have a problem with is they're coming after my fellow stakeholders. So excuse me while I fight to protect that. But one of the things I always hear people say is that they think it's an apples to apples situation, as if KW can be defined by profit share. Okay, like yeah, I get it. In a shifting market, let me guess, you make more money at a rev share company off of a recruit than you do at KW. Let's just say that's the case at 80, 90% of our market centers. Probably the top 10%, it's probably equal. But here's what I'm trying to say. Rev share is their value proposition. Okay, that is their value proposition. And, I don't know how many people come to KW to recruit. Okay, we come here for training, we come here for culture, for purpose, to fight for the future of our profession, to live big lives, to leave a legacy and all that great stuff. But the fact is, it's not apples to apples. And the truth is, if you want to compare the two models, rev share is not passive, it's residual. Okay, because they're not a training and coaching company, Deb, and they don't train and coach their agents, and it's actually the job of the people above you, quote unquote, to train and nurture you. But the other side of it is, how do you think that impacts culture, Deb, when everybody is just vested in the success of the people in their downline and only in their downline? And if you're not in a downline that's willing to invest in you, I'm sorry, where are you supposed to go to learn how to sell houses, right? So that's why I'm
right. That's why they're coming back to us, because they're on an island by themselves.
Well, right. And look, and during a pandemic, okay, I could see how they were perfectly poised, right, to go through some growth, which they did. But now people are coming back because they want to get back into the office. They want to get back into relationships. They want to be at a company that's training and consulting them on how to sell houses, right? And so that's what I love about the moment we're in. And I got to tell you, I'm getting a lot of kicks out of watching these virtual rev share companies cannibalizing each other, because, if price is your value proposition, there's always going to be another price, proposition coming along. And if we can just keep doing us, Deb, right? I mean, there's not another company that's going to come along and snap their fingers and say, okay, we got the same culture as KW, right? We've got Gary Keller. We're building tech to protect you from an industry. There's nobody like KW. We're inherently different, and we don't need to be in business with every agent that needs what we offer. We just need to be in business with the agents that value what we value. Do you agree with that?
100%. And just a kind of a parting thought, Aaron, I think that
Of course.
Two things. One of the things that's really inspires one of my agents is having you out. And for some reason, a lot of OPs fight it. And I don't know why. I mean, I would always pay to have you out, and it's well worth it when you think about it. So that is just something. I think we try to do it every 2 years because we found that, the continuity of it. And the second thing is the profit share mastermind group. I don't know why everyone doesn't put all their people in it, because I want everybody on my team in it. I want everybody on my office in it. It's free.
Especially now that I'm on my best behavior, Deb. I mean, you definitely want to get everybody into that group. But I think that, the great thing is about that group, Deb, is that there's so many different perspectives on profit share. I mean, you look at what you've done, you look at how I've done it, how Dave Jenks did it, how Linda McKissick did it. You got people now that are literally doing what I did, but doing it even bigger than what I could have ever done. And so, I always tell people, find what is a fit for your personality, just like real estate, Deb, right? I mean, there's so many different ways to build a huge real estate business. It's the same thing with profit share. Find what's authentic to you and attach your story to that, and just be persistent and consistent, because, Deb, this is the long game, right? I mean, right now when the market's down, profit share is a little bit down. The enthusiasm around profit share is a little bit down. These are the moments that people like you and me and other people that are purposeful about profit share are really starting to build our unfair share. Because the people we get to KW right now that survive and thrive moving forward, they're going to be the leaders of our industry for years to come. So, yeah.
The other thing that I think we need to make a ton of noise about it is we're at $1.9 billion, right? We're about to do $2 billion.
9. Yeah.
When my market center hit $1 million, we had a huge profit share party. We had a cash machine with money blowing everywhere, and we need to celebrate it, because you can't say it's not real if it's $2 billion, right?
I agree. They need to make it rain at Mega Camp this year. Just start dropping cash from the ceilings. Hey, Deb, listen, I can't thank you enough for taking time today. I love you and everything you represent and are for KW. So thank you for all your support over the years, for running in the market center from the heart, delivering our value proposition, and can't wait to give you a big hug at Mega Camp when I see you this year.
Thank you for all you do too, Aaron. I hope everybody gets out to see you and gets you in to do a class.
They will, Deb. Thank you so much for the shout out. All right, take care.
Bye-bye.